Hi all. So I did make a video how to read, and I was just going through it because apparently that got deleted, so I have to remake it. How to read? It is a very big question. Let's go through the answer, right? So reading is, first of all, you have to remember or memorize or whatever you may feel like. Reading is a skill, right? Reading is a skill, and it is not just a skill, it is a lifelong skill, I would say, because you're going to read forever. Just imagine your life without being able to read, right? You would be limited in so many ways. You would resemble more with an animal than with a human, because apparently in today's time we feel or we say that reading and writing have become a very important pillar of doing anything in life, be it a job, be it getting skilled or whatever. So reading is an extremely important part. No matter where you go, no matter what your career choices be, you will always have to read. Now, talking about reading in the context of research, how should we read in the context of research? So there are multiple ways, and this video would be divided into three parts: how to read part 1, how to read part 2, and how to read part 3. So the first and very important, significant, or I would say way of reading for your research project or your research title is to read titles, right? Read titles along with abstract and conclusion. Along with abstract and conclusion. So I usually like to make a pyramid out of it. So on one side you have abstract, on another side you have conclusion, in the middle you have contribution, and below contribution you have sections, right? So ideally, this is how you should read in your first iteration. You should go through titles, whatever titles are available. Then you should read their abstracts tentatively. You should read their conclusions. Most importantly, you should read the contributions of a paper. And then you should read the headings, name of the headings. Now you will ask that where will we find the contribution of a paper? You will always find it in the introduction section. That is point number 1. Second is, sections are those headings, like pointer number 1 will always be introduction, pointer number 2 will be related to literature review or related work, pointer number 3 would be further related to the topic. Usually pointer number 7 or 8 is like your conclusion. So I want you to go through these headings, because these headings are going to tell you what is it in the paper, and that is going to give you a more, I would say, abstracted idea that where you can find what, right? And apart from going through these sections, I would also advise you to go through the tables and figures. Just read the title of the figures and read the title of the tables, because apparently the more you read, for example, in your reading phase you read 100 titles of टेबल के जो टाइटल्स होते हैं, राइट? यू रीड देम. इफ वन पेपर हैज़ 4 tables, then I want you to read the title of those 4 tables at least 4 times, or maybe at least 6 times, so that you remember, so that you give your mind enough time to break it down, that how they've written, right? एक इनफॉर्मल राइटिंग में और फॉर्मल राइटिंग में डिफरेंस होता है. देयर इज अ ह्यूज डिफरेंस इन इनफॉर्मल एंड फॉर्मल राइटिंग. So when we are writing formally, which is our technical writing, which that is what we are doing here. So formal writing mein things should be done in a formal way, in a technical way, in a clear and concise way. It cannot be fiction based, or it cannot be non-technical. Randomly you cannot just put, right? So jargons and I would say small little things that we usually like to put, try to hold your hand, and try to open your mind to break down those titles, to break down those tables, break down those sections, reread those contributions. Ideally, I would expect that for a paper, how to search a paper is also a different video, right? So you go through that section, how to search. Once you go through that video, then you will be able to understand how to make your own pool of papers, and using this pool you're going to read. So right now we're talking about iteration number 1. This is our iteration number 1, where I'm simply asking you to go through the titles, read the titles, read their abstract, read their conclusion, look at the contribution very sincerely. This is very, very important, because different papers are going to write contributions in different manners. Some are going to write it in a paragraph, some are going to write it in bullet forms, some are, instead going to write questions. For example, just to get the creative juices flowing, instantly you got one idea, right? And that idea is related to flying, right? You might have seen lots of drones, and yesterday only, that's where the idea is coming. Yesterday only I saw one video where there were a lot of drones and they all went up in the air and they started to make different geometric patterns, and that was predicted as the future of fireworks, right? So they wrote it like that, future of fireworks, right? Now looking at that, I may think that is it possible to use this as a business use case, or is it possible to propose a working model out of it, or is it possible to give different variations that how this particular task can be done. Now from this particular point, it might happen that I felt that I want to do research on this particular area, but the question is how or what. And these questions are going to become the contributions by themselves. For example, I may say, what is the current state of work in India towards flying drones for audiovisual purposes. Now this is a question to which I need an answer, and this question can also be my contribution. On the other hand, I can rewrite the same contribution in this manner: to review or to study the current state of work towards flying drones for audio and visual purposes. To study, to propose, such kind of action verbs or such kind of things, that say that you're going to do this, they should always be there in the contribution. And ideally you'll have to read enough contribution, right? You have to read enough so that you're able to find out how to write your own contribution and what is going to work out well for yours paper. Second is, you will be going through lots of sections that will give you the freedom to decide ideally what would be your sections. So supposedly you made a research pool of 20 papers, and using this approach you did iteration 1. Now you're very much familiar with the titles which are present, you're very much familiar with the abstract, with the sections, with more or less what is there in which paper and which area is it touching, right? That much understanding it will be there in your head. Now you have to ask a question: is it enough? Before diving any deeper, you have to ask this question, right? If the answer is no, that it is not enough, then you redo the search. Dobara se you go again and you start looking for papers, you start downloading different papers, and then you repeat the entire exercise again. You go through those titles, abstracts and contributions, and then figure out what works for you and what doesn't. If it is fine that it is enough, yes it is enough, then your iteration 1 is ideally done. Then you're going to move on to the second iteration, which we will discuss in next video. For your first iteration, for this particular part, I want you to ask questions to your own mind. Ask questions, because these questions would be unique to each and every one of you. It would be unique to the area that is already there, and these questions are going to make you think like in a very clear manner, because already information is available, keywords are available, right? Concepts are available, data is available, stats are available, tools are available, everything is available, right? You just need to ask questions and then give answers to those questions. That is the whole sole purpose of doing this. So after your first iteration, ideally what you should have, and this is the matrix or this is the flow using which you're going to judge. You are going to make a research pool after choosing the title, tentative title. This is tentative. Always remember this is tentative, because you may never know how your work is going to evolve over a period of time. Then you're going to make a pool out of it. Once you have that pool, you're going to read through it once. Once you have done that iteration, if needed, redo it. Otherwise, you may go forward and you may use your template to ideally decide what would be your contributions and ideally what would be the sections that you are going to need in this particular body of work, right? So fill in your template and start working on this contribution. After your first reading iteration, ideally you should have clarity, you should have little bit of clarity with respect to, you should have clarity with respect to the sections that you're going to put in your paper and the contribution. What is it that you're going to work on this paper, right? So title is one aspect, title is one area. Uske andar what is it that we are targeting, that is specified by using these contributions. And by the time you complete your first reading, I believe that you will have your contributions tentative, that okay, these are my questions or these are my proposed pointers that I'm going to work on, and I'm going to provide answers towards these particular pointers in this body of work. So that is your reading iteration number 1. And if I make it reading like this, ideally I would say that this is your iteration 1, iteration 1, and then you're going to get into the second iteration, and then you're going to get into the third iteration, and then this would be the final more chaotic, more targeted and more surgical work, right? So this I'm going to call it surgical work, because by the time you reach this stage, maybe stage 4, you would just be enhancing the existing stuff, right? So I'll tell you how to go about it. For this video, this is enough, and I hope that I'm able to give you one strategy to follow. Otherwise you would be lost, right? And we don't want you to be lost. When you're going through lots of resources on internet, just keep on enriching your mind instead of getting lost, right? So there are 2 ways. For example, this is your device that you're working on, and this is you. So ideally what happens is we keep our eyes open and we keep on looking at this, and our mind comes here in this existing pool of work which is flooding with information, right? And now my mind is running all different places over all of this information, and I have no idea at the end of the day, because nothing is going here, right? My mind is lost in the pool of information. Another way to go about it is to take out this information and use it to enrich your mind, which is over here, right? So this way, if you pick up information and if you feed it in your head, that way you will allow only targeted delivery of information which is meaningful to your title. And at the end of this reading, you will be more enriched, your mind will be more enriched, and that is what we want, because then you're going to sleep and then you're going to wake up the next day, and those ideas will mature in your head over that period of time. Then you're going to reread, you're going to repeat this, and then you're going to come here, become more enriched, then sleep, then wake up, then mature, and then reread, right? Writing is also something that we are going to incorporate here. The point that I'm trying to make is, don't sit here in the middle of the resource pool where you have no idea what you have to do. Instead, get that information in your head so that you're able to think about a concept, right? And this is something that you cannot skip. You will find yourself in a lot of trouble if you just put your head into this area, because you will be lost, your head will be lost. But if you keep on ingesting information in a strategic manner and you're not getting lost in that pool of information, only then it is enriching you, right? So that is all for this video. You may ask any questions that you have in the chat box below. Thank you.